Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future Space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Our guest today is Skyler Chan. Skyler is the founder and CEO of GRU Space, a San Francisco-based aerospace startup building the world's first lunar hotel. A UC Berkeley graduate in electrical engineering and computer sciences, Skyler built vehicle software at Tesla before contributing to a NASA-funded 3D printer project that flew to space aboard Virgin Galactic. He founded GRU Space in 2025 at age 21, becoming the youngest solo founder in Combinator's space tech history. The company uses in-situ resource utilization and robotic systems to convert lunar regolith into building materials for scalable habitats backed by investors tied to SpaceX, Nvidia, and Anduril. Skyler's vision extends beyond tourism to permanent human settlement on the moon and Mars. Skyler, welcome to the Future of Space.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for the kind introduction. Nice to meet you guys.
A hotel on the moon. It's no more science fiction. We're talking about a hotel on the moon now.
Hotel on the moon now. Yes.
Skyler, what would be your 3 words that for you capture the essence of space?
Curiosity, truth, and existentialism.
Truth. Expand a little bit more on this one.
I think in this world, there's objective truth and there's subjective truth, right? And the goal of science and technology and space exploration is really the epitome of exploring truth, is to bring the gap between subjective truth to what objective truth is. It's like an asymptote. You can never get there because as a human being, like, we have certain senses, right? And our senses oftentimes bias us. Like, we can only see the visible spectrum in the EM wavelength. And so, sorry, the EM spectrum. And so it really is a question of like, well, how can we, what technologies can we develop to have this very exciting future of understanding truth better? And so I think space and truth, it's actually quite married together. It's very, very tightly coupled.
I'm always excited when I get for the first time a word that hasn't been shared with.
Is that usually?
Yeah, I mean, usually, it goes around innovation, curiosity, cold, vast, but truth is the first one. Do you think that humans have a place or a role beyond the planet, beyond Earth?
Yeah, I guess it comes down to actually the question of meaning of life, and like everyone has a different interpretation. My personal meaning of life, for me, what it means to me, is very tightly coupled with this. It's always been exploring objective truth and understanding, getting as close to objective truth as possible. I think like exploring space is really getting to like that objective truth, and that's like the most exciting thing. I have a lot of thoughts on this too, actually. I have a lot of philosophy on this. So let's think of it this way, right? So we're all born this time in human history, right? This is like year 2026. Like, there's a lot of arbitrary things out there that I think a lot of people assume. The year is 2026, or like we've done certain things a certain way. We have to follow that paradigm or that pattern or whatever. I think the very exciting thing is like, man, we're born this time in human history where we can actually have people live on the moon and Mars, and not for like temporary visits, but for permanent presence. You think about like all the achievements in human history, like at this, you draw a line here. It's like this bucket, like the set of all the things that we've done in the human race. Like, we've explored these places, we've gone to these locations, like we've made these breakthroughs, we brought medicines like penicillin, like, the industrial revolution, the agricultural revolution, the internet, AI.com. Like, what's the next big breakthrough? And I think the next big breakthrough is really, again, if we can use resources off Earth, now the pie is expanded, and now we can talk about this exciting future of humans living on the moon and Mars. And that future is only enabled if we use resources on the moon and Mars, which is why it's so exciting for us to work on this technology. Like, again, it's not like a 10-year thing. It's happening like right now. Like, we're actively developing this payload that's literally starting construction in like 365 days, like next year. So it's extremely exciting. I think like the philosophy around this, and this is a bit of a digression, but like, this is what's very internal to me. My whole life is just like, man, like, we're born this time, we're our generation, it's not like dreaming anymore. Like, we can think about these things. Like, the falling launch prices make it so this is viable. The new space economy makes it so that there's a platform for companies like ours to emerge to build the next big space company in the world. And so it's just really exciting. And I think that also ties into the economy as well as a thing to think about. It's oftentimes easy for people to get lost in the weeds, but like, let's step back for a second. Like, what is the economy? Like, the economy is just like, what is value? What is money? It's just like humans benefiting other groups of human beings, right? And if you think about like every technological revolution that's happened in human history, why did that occur in the first place? Like, what's the reasoning? Like, what's the why? The why is really because us figuring out how to grow plants and the agricultural revolution was great, because now we don't have to spend time running around hunting things. We can sit in a place and think about things like science and math, and make more advancements in other places in society that then saves us more time to have more time to innovate new things that then save us more time. So it's like a virtuous cycle. And I think, again, once you break like the glass ceiling, to my earliest point, which is that there's a lot of things that people just accept as the way it is. Well, I think one of the things people accept as the way it is like humans. Well, yeah, humans are on Earth. Like that's just, how it's always been. Like, no, we could have humans go beyond Earth. And that's the whole point, is like when we break the glass barrier, which glass, I use glass because we don't even know that the barrier exists until we break it. That's great, because now there's this whole new, like, all these resources off Earth that we can tap into and leverage, and not just, again, benefit our own personal enjoyment, going back to the first part about exploring space and exploring truth and curiosity, but also downstream impacts all of society as a whole and elevates society, like the average quality of life for everybody. And in turn, the economy, so to speak, the new economy of the moon economy, Martian economy, etc., comes to fruition once we break that barrier of figuring out how to make stuff off Earth. This is why it's very exciting.
For the older generation, Star Trek and Apollo were two anchors that triggered this engagement in the space industry, whether with NASA or even commercial and private today. A lot of people find their roots into those two events. For your generation, and for you, what has been these trigger moments that made you go and say, I'm going for the moon, I'm going for space? Was it just a question of opportunities going from one place to the other, or there was something generally that, like, from the beginning you wanted to get yourself involved?
For me, like, I mean, growing up as a kid, like, I was just inspired by a lot of the greats, a lot of the people who pushed the boundary. And I think a lot of the astronauts who have done a lot of the new, paved the way for us having people on the space station and exploring further into space with Artemis 2 crew. That has been part of like this whole inspiration behind this company. It's funny because this whole base, like having in the moon base or like a Mars base, has unironically been like something I've been thinking about for a very long time. My first email address I made when I was like 10 is literally called marsbase101@gmail.com. You can still look it up. You can probably find when it was made, and you can see the proof that it was made many years ago. So to me, it was just like painfully obvious that, of course, we're going to have humans live on the moon and Mars before all this funding stuff came out, or all the NASA stuff and a lot of this buzz. Now, of course, clearly there's nothing we can really control with that outcome. Like, there's a lot of luck involved here. But yeah, in terms of like the question of like, how did that play into it? Like the previous shit, like the Star Trek and all that stuff, like that's definitely was an exciting thing. But it was more like thinking again from the ground up of like, well, what's like the biggest impact we can make in our lifetime? What's the next big breakthrough? And well, it became very clear to me that it's got to be something in space, and it's going to be about putting humans on the moon or Mars. And it's the way to solve that is going to be industrializing the moon.
It is definitely, I mean, if you look back at the incentives for any migration, any expansion, any exploration, it's usually resource driven. There needs to be something very pragmatic that can fund these huge investments. Even in Europe, what was the impetus to go and explore the ocean was resource driven. They were looking for more food, more trees, more places to harvest. And as we go to space, we're gonna have to follow water. We're gonna have to find those places that have a reason for us to be there. I'm still on the line as to whether Mars is a logical place to be. We will need to find something to justify spending that money to settle on Mars. There has to be something resource driven that justifies Mars. So it might be, maybe Mars is the carrot, but along the way we will find other places that make more sense. So explain to us the brick and the whole process of building a moon hotel. I mean, it's not like you go say one day, let's just buy a piece of property and we'll send trucks and build something. How does it work?
The way we thought about it is working backwards from the problem. So a moon hotel, at first glance, Sounds very crazy. Let's break that down. A lunar hotel is a lunar habitat. And when we think about what are the problems that immediately, let's say you and I magically appear on the lunar surface, we take off our spacesuit. Bad things will happen. What's the first bad thing that will happen? Well, there's no atmosphere, so pressure. There's a lack of pressure. Okay, number one, pressure. Second thing is the extreme temperature swings on the lunar surface, hundreds of degrees of Celsius. Third thing is the potential for radiation. So you've got galactocosmic rays and you've also got solar particle events. So bursts of radiation, just think of it like that. The last thing is the potential for micrometeorite impacts. And so there's obviously a whole list of different issues that can occur on the moon, but let's think about these 4 things for now. Okay, well, what are the ways that we can solve for these problems, working backwards from this set? The last 2 things is the radiation and micrometeorites. This is where the brick comes in. If you have enough bricks, or rather shielding, padding, you can protect from radiation. And you can also protect from micrometeorites. The other half is the inflatable, is the pressure and temperature, which is solved with something like an inflatable. Then it's like, well, okay, let's work backwards from these technologies. Let's ask ourselves, what is the status quo, right? So we just talked about like the far off future. Now let's think about what is the current state of technology today. Let's ask ourselves the questions. Have we proven that we can make a brick on the moon? Or rather, the real question is, have we proven that we can make a product on the moon with lunar resources? The current answer is no. Humans haven't done that yet. Okay, that's exciting. We haven't done that yet, but we can. Next thing is, have we proven that we can have an enclosed space where we can regulate temperature and pressure so that it's a safe environment for someone to take off their spacesuit and stay in a hotel or a habitat? We also haven't done that yet. Okay, cool. So now we identified these 2 problems that are critical path towards going from today to 2032 hotel opening. Now let's think about what are the missions required to prove out that set of technology so that we can go from 0 to this end state. This is literally the thought process when I was starting the company of like how we designed the mission. Basically, end state is the hotel. What do we need going forward? So the first mission, let's talk about that. What we're going to do is we're going to send a shoebox-sized payload to the lunar surface. And what it's going to do is it's going to do 2 things. It's going to take regolith. So regolith is the technical term for basically soil on the moon. And we're going to transform that into a product. The product in this case, the first version of that is the brick. And that brick is, the idea with this is like, okay, if we can do this, then we can scale. Then we can send more of these factories, more of these bad boys to the moon and crank out more of these bricks and start the construction at scale of this hotel that solves for these 2 problems. The other half of this shoebox-sized payload that we're sending to the moon next year is going to be a version of the inflatable that will be used to protect people inside that chamber. So again, it's used to protect from temperature and pressure. And we're going to do tests again with that. That's mission 1. Mission 2 is a scale-up version of this. What that means is we're going to send a bigger version, so not shoebox size, a larger version payload to the lunar surface. We're then going to send more of these machines to basically construct payload. There's likely going to be robotics involved, which is very exciting. And we're going to have a bigger version of this inflatable. And the idea is there are these collapsed lava tubes on the moon, which are basically lunar caves. And the reason why these are exciting is because these lunar caves arguably offer better radiation shielding and protection from micrometeorite impacts. So this is great. We can put our hotel here. So we can go into that cave, expand the inflatable, place the bricks around it like an igloo structure, and that forms the basis of a habitat, which then becomes commercialized as a hotel. That's sort of the progression of how we go from like status quo today, 2026, towards the construction of the final first version of the hotel.
Which reminds me, stay with me. So this is the brick.
Hey,
right?
There we go. That's the brick.
So for the ones who this is listened to, basically I'm holding in a little frame a brick that you gave me in New York. Is it the size of the brick that you're talking about, or we're talking?
So this is
once on the moon, it's going to be bigger.
Yeah. So clearly for the hotel, we'll need bigger bricks to build the actual hotel. It's the same material though, and it's the same style of manufacturing.
So we're talking about a Wall-E-like shoebox spitting out bricks on the moon, taking in the regolith and putting it all together and then shooting out these little bricks.
And that's the other thing that we realized recently as a team that's exciting is Wall-E box shoe, cute Wall-E box that we're sending to the moon. It's making these bricks and we're scaling it up. But there's an opportunity to include, like, because this, again, the whole point of this company and this mission as a whole is bringing humanity together. It's making humanity intergalactic, right? So we want to make this in a way where it's for the human race, for the species, for the benefit of all of humanity. So in that regard, we're working on potentially including people on this mission in the sense of including people's entities, companies, brands, names on the mission that's going to the surface, which is exciting because it's like, the Voyager, like golden record. It's the same idea of like, well, what's going on the moon brick record or whatever you want to call it that's going to the surface.
So people will be able to basically put their names or buy a brick and where they can look up and they can say, there's a brick on
my name is there.
My name is over there. How has it been the response or the public reaction to that?
Well, so the thing is, we are going to do a formal launch pretty soon, actually, to invite the public to be a part of this mission. This is an early glimpse at it. So that's number one. The second thing is a lot of the partnerships that we've been cooking up, we're going to be rolling them out soon. The response has been pretty positive, pretty exciting. I think the logic to me was when I'm getting the feedback from customers and partners is pretty clear. It's just like, people who run the positioning marketing department in the global company, they want to be the first of their category on the moon. It's like the best advertising campaign of all time. And it's something that they can start sharing now. It's not something that they have to wait until the thing goes up. It's something they can start doing the PR stuff now. So yeah, we're actually rolling some stuff out pretty shortly, which is pretty exciting. It should be on LinkedIn soon. Again, it's the realization on our end as a company is like, we feel like the responsibility of curating the right people and partners, because in other words, it's not like there's a sense of, we're aware of, there's a sense of companies that do allow other companies to kind of hop on the advertising train of hype. It's important that, we partner with companies that understand the gravity, no pun intended, of this mission, of what it means for all of humanity. It's not just like, oh, we're going to go around the moon or, do this in one time thing. Like, no, this is like a progression thing. Think of it like Plymouth Rock. Think of it like the first churches that were built in the East Coast of the United States, and like the people who were part, like the donors who donated a brick, literally those red bricks in those churches or these things, like they want to play a part in shaping like human history and like how human influence gets spread across the world. And now we're talking about across the moon. So it's important that people understand that. And so that's also part of our process in onboarding people.
With the brick, is your goal more to be the supplier of material to other companies that are more design focused and need the technology to build? Or are you looking to really vertically cover everything from creating your material to designing and furnishing inside, developing all the technology that is needed to have that hotel on the moon?
Our key technology is the construction. It's everything from the processing of the materials to creating the products. Our specialty is ISRE again, right? So it's understanding how all the other product lines that we can make. The brick, again, is actually think of it like in the evolution of humanity, it's like the most basic version of it. But there's also like aluminum, semiconductor, silicon, data center construction, landing pad construction, bridges, all these other products, offshoots. So it's like the V1 Pokemon. And there's lots of different Pokemons that we can make. That's how we see ourselves fitting in the supply chain. It just turns out that our first product line is in us running our own hotel on the moon, which is the key business. But the vision is that it's going to expand into all these other product lines that we'll be able to develop and operate on our own. The reason why we think of it like this way, not from like a segregated, like, okay, you have to have a operating partner here, you have to have the supplier here, and blah, blah, blah. The reason why we're not separating out right away is because if you think about our vision as well for any emerging market is that whoever's the first mover there is going to have to kind of shape and dictate all these new like paradigms and pave the way in terms of how we think about this, because it hasn't been done before. Once there's a precedent established for like, okay, well, here's how lunar hotels are built, or here's how permits work on it, and like all these different things, that's probably when it'll start to make sense to bring on like strategic partners to help accelerate the development of certain properties, of certain product lines, and that kind of stuff. But until that hasn't been done, it's like to do things that don't scale. Advice that Y Combinator, which is the accelerator we're part of, often shares is like, when you're doing something new, don't try to scale it or optimize it right away. Just do the most straightforward base case version of it, and then you can scale. And so because there hasn't been all these precedents set up on the moon, which also is really exciting because, I mean, think about it, right? Like you're going to call for PG&E, right? Like these kinds of things. But these are all things that we could shape. because we're so early, which is why this is all really exciting.
What has been the technology or the process? I mean, I assume like everything else that you do, you've worked backward, but you're like, okay, there's a brick here on Earth and it's done with X and Y and Z. Now we have to do something similar up on the moon, but we don't have X and Y and Z, or we're trying to apply the process that we have here, or we're trying to reinvent the process.
I would say it's like we're not reinventing the process for the sake of it. It's more like it's kind of funny, right? Because I use this term so much. There should be a term for it, like working backwards. One of the key operational principles we have at the company is working backwards from every problem instead of working forward. So we find that by working backwards, we're able to delete a lot of the requirements and cut out some things. When applied to this thinking of like, are we inventing things from scratch? Are we reinventing the wheel? Are we adopting existing technologies? Example, geopolymers. It's been done before on Earth. We've made concrete using this process. Are there custom things for the moon? Well, yeah, there are, right? I mean, manufacturing the moon is, as we can imagine, a little bit different. Why? Well, you've got the pressure, you got the temperature swings, you got to like, account for that. You have to design it so that it's able to withstand those. You got the 1/6 Earth's gravity on the moon, so it's a little bit different in terms of the physics. But at least with the geopolymer side itself, that is like very low risk. It's been done before on Earth. It's proven technology, so we're not necessarily reinventing it. Oh, but what about like all the other specialized manufacturing lines that we're going to open up? Well, okay, that is more something that we're going to have to reinvent, or rather invent from scratch, working backwards from each product line, like how we envision it, and then like what are the things that we need to prove to show ourselves and also to the world that this is a possible technology.
There's a lot of pushback when talking about going beyond Earth. There's a lot of issues right now with storytelling about who we are, what we've done, and what we're going to be doing. You're obviously from a younger generation. What is your perspective, or what is your approach when presented with these arguments against or challenging the necessity for us to do these things, or to go to these places?
I'd say there's two layers to it, and this is a great point too. So the first layer is addressing these questions, pushback, etc. I think, and again, very biased because I'm coming from the younger generation, so glad you pointed it out. I really think it's about like, again, it boils down to being very responsible of like, okay, like what are the precedents that we're gonna set up? Okay, make bricks on the moon. What does that look like? Who owns the land? That kind of stuff. It's important to think about that. These answers are not cut clear yet. We have humans living on the moon. Ethically, what kinds of people get to go first? Are they going to be very wealthy? You know, are they going to skew in one direction, one specific demographic? My personal note on this, by the way, is I think it's a means to an end. Like if you look historically at the development of the airplane, you can argue today airplanes are great. It connects people of all places. If there's a family emergency, somebody can hop on a plane and get from point A to point B really quickly. The cost of taking a transatlantic flight today is way cheaper than taking a boat back in the day. And it's also a lot more fast, and it's more efficient, and it's more accessible. Now, how do we get there from no planes to today modern world? If you actually look at the history, people who developed the first versions of these aircraft from the Wright brothers onward oftentimes were funded by patrons who were on the more wealthy side. And as a result, they were also one of the first people who can experience flight. Now, one could argue from the perspective of equality that, okay, well, no, that's not fair. But if we argued, no, that's not fair, and we just never pursued that in the first place, we would not have this net positive for the rest of society that lives in the 21st modern century. And so what I think is likely going to happen is it's the same thing. We're going to have a lot of people who are on the side of the world where they can afford these luxury vacations to the moon very directly. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because that is going to pave the way for the benefit of the rest of the world. Going back to the examples when I talked about every like revolution, technology revolution, society has elevated all of humanity. I think it's going to be the same thing here. So that's the first layer. But the second layer is actually more existential. It's more like, by the way, like for what it's worth, there's always going to be pushback. It does not make a difference for us. We're going to do this regardless of what people say on the internet or what people have opinions on. It's going to happen whether people like it or not. And we're very excited that NASA, the government, have shown a lot of interest in making it, whether people like it or not. We're also very excited that a lot of the very wealthy people in the world and just people who are building exciting, some very specific big space companies also want to build stuff on the moon and Mars. So regardless of what the general public think about, is it fair, is it not fair, I hate to say it, but it's going to happen whether people like it or not. You can choose to stand on the sidelines or you can choose to be a part of human history is my message to those folks.
Have you approached already some hotel companies hoping that they come along or at least give their stamp of approval or get on board with the conversation? I remember back with Axiom, Hilton had started to talk. They wanted to be part of the conversation, but I think that this is a great vehicle for these brands that have to see beyond where they are right now and just at least tie themselves to something that has a certain vision to it.
We are having those conversations. So it is very exciting. It's also important again to be cognizant of which brands are the most aligned for this.
Even if it's not technically feasible or has a financial value to them at the moment, it is being part of the conversation that puts you as a leader and sees where the puck is going rather than where the puck.
Exactly. Where the puck is going is a great way to put it. It's the hockey, not where the puck came from, but where the puck is going. And I think that's important. It's easy for people to look at where the puck is from, but not where it's going. Right. So
when you were saying about the working backwards, grabbing a vision of what you want to have and then working backwards on the problems. Because most of the time, the approach that people have is like, it can't be done. Well, that's very boring and there's nothing you can do with that. There's nothing you can.
There's no agency. There's no action to take, right? Like, what are we going to do? Just sit and twiddle our thumbs, right?
It's such a statement that sets you up for nothing and you don't have to justify it. You don't have to think about it. You just have to say, I can or I can't. Usually it's more, I can't do it. But when you approach a problem or when you approach a situation by saying, it either works or it doesn't work, it's a very different approach. First of all, you realize that it's a more dynamic relationship. A characteristic can change. And also the understanding that what works today might not work tomorrow. So it's a total different approach. And for me, this is one of the things in where the word I don't like this word because it offers no solution. It offers no moving forward. It's static. But it works or it doesn't work, then you can work backwards to try to figure out and find the solution. So if there is one thing our species has proven, it's just a question of time. We figure things out and we are a reactive species and a participant into this environment. We're not this static group of people who just see the world pass by and do nothing. Like often we see in movies and where the entire fate of the world is on the shoulder of one individual. And if it's not because of that one individual, everything is going to go down. The reality is that there are millions of people that wake up in the morning trying to find solution. And the idea that one day there's going to be 10 billions, 20 billions, 50 billion people living on Earth and beyond the solar system, that percentage of people that keeps increasing trying to find solution, for me, it's so inspiring. And I'm looking to see infrastructure on the moon. I'm looking to see, I think I told you that before, and I'm not too sure if it's going to happen, but I want to look up to the moon and see lights. I want to see something in there. Like it reminds us of this is how far we've gone and we are, because we can look up and if you have a telescope, you will see the space station passing by. But, very, very difficult and challenging to find and to follow. But if you look up to the moon and you can see lights, you can see like a visual proof of our place, I find that absolutely so inspiring. So many people don't want to see that because they think of the moon as sacred and we can't touch it. But that's for them. That's not for me.
I'm very in agreement with you on that. It is what it is, man. We're going there. That's the future. Very exciting.
I assume that if you had the chance to go to the moon, you will.
That's why I'm building the company. So I can visit the hotel too.
Was there anything in the recent announcement by NASA with the plans for the moon and where GRU has a specific place?
Yeah, I think publicly we haven't said anything yet, but it's very, very exciting future.
What are the technology you're looking to create with GRU as you start laying out the foundation on the moon? Solutions of power or the mobility, or If you had like kind of a blank canvas of building the vision of GRU or your vision, what does it look like?
Our focus right now is the brick technology and then scaling that so that we can build more products using resources on the moon. So again, the other product lines like manufacturing on the moon of all different kinds, that's really the main focus. Things like power, comms, these are not our main focuses right now. That would play a part in obviously the arc of what's happening in like the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of the moon base plan with all the construction and manufacturing required on the surface of the moon, and also for things like habitats, right? Again, how the whole logic I spelled out with hotels on the moon, habitats on the moon. It's also a need for astronauts, government astronauts.
I was kind of curious about the science of your brick. Like here on Earth, you need a specific type of sand because the sand in the desert is not the correct sand to create cement. You want the one that's usually down in the water, which is another thing that people don't know. We're actually running out of sand for a lot of cement. When you're on the moon and you're dealing with regolith, which is very difficult to manage, it's very fine, it gets everywhere. What are the challenges or the things that you guys have to do to create the brick, basically?
So there's a couple of challenges. I think first we can talk about resource challenges. Resource challenges are things like power constrained environment on the moon. So when we're thinking about what types of technology we can develop and also demonstrate on the surface, there's only so much power that we can use. If you look at other approaches, which we've actually laid out in the white paper as well, like a comparison, sintering and melting are two other common approaches when it comes to manufacturing the moon. The pros of that, you can use 100% of the resources on the surface of the moon. You just need very high energy lasers to basically melt that stuff. And if you think about feasibility, this rules it out as a technology that can be demonstrated next year because we don't have nuclear reactors on the moon. If you look at our current approach, this is important, it's a current approach for a demo is using a geopolymer. And so there's a trade-off because now you have to bring some of the mass from Earth to the moon. But the benefit is now you're able to bring down your energy cost overall because the action required is just like a mixing system or essentially a one-time injection of the geopolymer fluid mixing with the regolith, if that makes sense, rather than having to melt. This is good because in terms of feasibility, like now this is possible for a mission that's going next year. Okay, so we talked about resource constraints. Now we can talk about some of the other challenges when it comes to what's out there. Regolith on the moon, most of it is actually roughly almost 50% is oxygen, which is great because now we can talk about things like ecosystems, so environmental control and life support systems, so oxygen for that. We can also talk about fuel. Now, our take currently is very biased towards should not be using oxygen on the moon for propellant long term because that's something that gets expelled and you can't recycle it. Whereas if you use oxygen for things like life support systems, well, that's great because now you can use that oxygen to recycle, like what's on the International Space Station. That's one of the other challenges is how do we extract these resources? Right now, for our current brick, we don't need to do oxygen extraction because we're not creating oxygen. We're just creating bricks. But down the line, we're going to need to have more advanced systems to do advanced manufacturing on the moon. So again, this is like, think of like going up the ranks of like Pokemon levels, right? Evolving the Pokemon to higher levels. We need better technology. In terms of like what is critical path there, right? These are not critical path for the mission. Think of it like you've got this like quadrant and you have this line, Goldilocks line. That's like what's critical path towards us building the hotel. There's a lot of different other manufacturing capabilities that are not critical path, but are like here and here on the plot. But everything that we chart out currently is like in this Goldilocks range of what needs to be built. So that brings me to the last challenge, which is actually more like existential, more operational, which is like focusing on what is actually meaningful to build. Because if you go look up a lot of the research papers, there's like tons of research papers about all the different things you can do to manufacture stuff on the moon. But if there's no use for it and it's not timed well, it's going to kill the company. It's going to be useless. It's not meaningful. Everything that we work on has to be tied to the overall mission, which again is important because we work backwards. That's how we succeed.
Did you guys reach out to Minecraft?
Well, no, we haven't yet, actually. That's a great idea.
If you think about laying down bricks and building things.
Yeah, actually, no one suggested reaching out to Mojang or Minecraft or working with them on something.
Skyler, before we get to the words of wisdom, you and I, we've had a conversation about a little bit about that. You went to Berkeley. You're based in San Francisco, but you started in Vancouver. And you and I, we talked about the different environments of these ecosystem that either promotes or incentivize entrepreneurship, how different this project would be had you not been in San Francisco in an environment or in the US?
We're both in the same boat with the experiences that we had coming over here and all that and all the associated things. I think it would definitely be different by a lot. My trajectory would probably be a lot shorter. A lot more protracted. I think, again, Silicon Valley is the place to be. It's where it welcomes crazy, bold ideas and it doesn't shun it. It doesn't judge it because it knows that 1 out of 100 of them are actually likely to change the course of a certain industry, become $1 billion plus company. And so because of that, that's why it's so wealthy, because it takes those shots on goal and it only takes one to return. Let me just bring it back to this question. I do think it would be a lot different. Berkeley has helped a lot with this journey. Berkeley is a great school. It's very scrappy. A lot of great people have come out of it. Frankly, the support network was great. Like basically my first year friend group, everybody has gone into YC since W24. Every single batch, at least one person for different companies. At first I thought it was coincidence, but not to like toot our own horns, but I think it's also just because we found each other and we had like shared values, and people who have shared values who start companies often have shared values and they want to stick together and stuff like that. And everyone's just very high performing. Everyone's a killer. A lot of great engineers at Cal, a lot of great people to work from, to learn from. Like I would not be involved in the 3D printer that went to space called Space Cal if I wasn't at Berkeley. That opportunity to work with NASA would not have existed if I stayed in Canada. The opportunity to work with just all kinds of great engineers at great companies and internships and other programs would not have existed. My first year, like decal, it's like a student run course at Berkeley, was actually space one. It was a space entrepreneurship one, and we got to work with a big aerospace prime to develop some stuff. And ironically, it was actually it's ISAM, right? It was in space manufacturing, so it's very aligned with what we're doing today at GRU. There's a space sciences lab program at Berkeley where you get to do research, which I was also a part of. That was very useful. Frankly speaking, again, it was actually all working backwards again, because I had this vision of working on this, and I asked myself, like, where do I have to be? Like working backwards from building this company when I'm like 22. I asked myself at 17, like, where do I have to be there? And it was Berkeley's part of that picture. So yeah, weirdly enough, everything played out perfectly according to plan, which is very rare. I'm very fortunate for that. Like literally according to plan. Like if I look back at like my yearly reflections, I like maybe these like master plans in life. Literally what I wrote 3 years ago about what I want to be, I'm literally doing exactly that down to the everyday life. So I'm very grateful for that. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer to say like going to the US definitely helped. And I think at the end of the day, like it's interesting because you look at San Francisco, right? You've got a lot of crazy stuff going on, right? All kinds of crazy things. You even like the streets are sometimes crazy in both good and bad ways. But I think weirdly enough, when you have turbulence, it literally is disruption, right? In many different areas of life, whether it's like the people or whether it's the ideas, whether it's the funding opportunities, whether it's like there's all these like hurdles that you have to go through. Like as an example, like Berkeley does not hold your hand, right? It's very decentralized. You're forced to figure a lot of things out. And everyone who went to Cal knows this. Same with a lot of public schools. But this is very realistic of what the real world is like. And if you're going to start something, you have to be able to take like 100 no's to your face. You have to be able to take like 100 people saying, you're a complete idiot. This is a stupid idea. You should be doing something better with your time. But it's all about conviction, right? Because if you really believe in something, you're going to be doing it regardless of what people think. There were many months actually, like when I started it, towards when I decided to launch the Moon Hotel. Like there's like a huge like chunk of time where it was hard. Every day, sometimes you just be bang your head against a wall thinking, man, like, am I really cut out for this? Is this really the thing? Like, does this really make sense? But then looking back at like the response we got from the launch, which honestly was like the catalyst for everything else onward, and like all the other work that we still have to do, but like we still were able to get somewhere to the next milestone, to get to the next thing, to get to the next thing. I think conviction is king. You have to really believe in what you're doing, or else why are you even doing it in the first place?
Which is a great segue to the final question. What would be your 3 words of wisdom?
I think it's really just comes down to like the best wisdom is following your own wisdom. Like the best advice is like is actually your best advisor, in the sense of like, let's say your role model shows up and you get 5 minutes to talk to him. Like Elon shows up and you get to talk to him for like 5 minutes. You ask him for advice. chances are the advice that they're going to give you is not that actionable or useful. Why? Because they only have 5 minutes of context window on you. You think about context window as a way of thinking. The facts, the literal physics, scientific facts are that each one of us who has the most context window on our life, ourselves, because we are ourselves. And not your parents, not your friends, not your husband, wife, partner, or like anyone else, not some advisor, PhD advisor or something. You should listen to your own gut and you should listen to your own advice. And so I think the reason why this is important, because oftentimes in life, there's a lot of brilliant people out there in the world, but they're lost because they're following someone else, or like they feel like they have to follow someone else's advice and they don't listen to their own conviction or belief. If you really believe that working at this company is going to change the world a lot more than this company, but everyone is saying you should do this, you should not listen to them. You should do what you think. If you think moving to this new city is better because of XYZ, but like my advisor said I can't do that because that's not where all these people go. You're just reasoning by analogy. Like, you're not thinking from the ground up. You're not thinking for yourself. Oh, like this entrepreneurship book says I should do this, so I should do this MBA program or something before I start this thing. Like, no, you're following a deferred life plan. You're not taking action. And I think all this ties into agency, which is like the most effective people are people who have high agency. You can just do things in life. You don't need to ask for permission. You don't need to ask for advice. You can just go for it. It's not like it's perfect world. Like, of course, there's going to be times where like, is even for myself, right? Like, you get caught overthinking things or like asking for things, asking for opinions before shipping it. Just do it. If you really believe in something, it doesn't matter what other people think because you believe in it. And if you don't believe in something enough and you're willing to flip flop, then that's a sign. Like, if people give you advice and you're like, okay, maybe it's actually better to do this, and like, I don't have conviction, that's fine. You just don't have conviction, but you have to own it that you don't have conviction, and then you have to go find it. So that's my take.
How important do you think mentors are? Well, understanding obviously that you need to follow your instinct and your gut and not let no's deter you, but having mentors in those moments where the support is needed.
I think it's helpful. Like, for specific things, like say you're trying to do something that is you haven't done before, say like fundraising, or say you're trying to close customers for the first time in a specific domain, and you have a mentor who's done it before and can kind of show you the ropes. Absolutely, that's very helpful. I think just like, especially for things like life decisions, like that's where you really got to think for yourself. That's very important.
So Skyler, people can go on your website, GRU.space, GRU.space. They can find out more. And you've been quite out there right now in the media. There's a lot of hype around what you do and what you guys are building. This is very interesting. It's been fascinating to see your journey. So looking forward to see more.
Thank you, Daniel.
And Minecraft, put that on your list. They're like a natural partner for this. They should they will.
If anyone from Mojang is listening to this, shoot me a line.
Reach Skyler or reach me, and then I'll make the introduction.
Yeah, this is refreshing. Thanks, Daniel. These are great questions, by the way. Great podcast. So
thank you so much.
Take care. I'll see you soon.